Here's the course of the evening. First, you will see and hear a message from Minister Christian Dubé. Second, our president of the RPCU, Monsieur Pierre Hamel, will say hello. We'll proceed after with the presentation by Monsieur Gérald Bolduc, and there will be a question period at the end. So we wish you a great conference. Bonne soirée à tous. Donc, sans plus tarder, je vais activer la vidéo de Monsieur Dubé. Vous faites thumbs up si vous l'entendez bien. D'accord?
Bonjour, j'ai le plaisir de participer au lancement de la Semaine nationale des droits des usagers du réseau de la santé et des services sociaux qui se déroule du 13 au 19 novembre. La tenue de cette semaine est une initiative soutenue par le recouvrement provincial des comités des usagers, le RPCU, en collaboration avec les comités des usagers et les comités de résidents. Chaque année, la Semaine nationale des droits des usagers vise à renseigner les usagers sur leurs droits, mais aussi à mettre en valeur tout le travail qui est réalisé par les comités d'usagers et les comités de résidents dans l'ensemble des établissements de santé et de services sociaux. Le thème retenu pour l'édition 2022 est « Les droits des usagers, les connaissez-vous ». C'est donc une belle occasion pour en apprendre davantage. Le RPCU, les comités des usagers et les comités de résidents de partout au Québec souligneront d'ailleurs cette semaine importante en organisant différentes activités dans leur milieu. Je vous invite à visiter le site web du RPCU pour en savoir plus. Le RPCU est un organisme partenaire du ministère de la Santé et des Services sociaux et un allié précieux pour l'amélioration de la qualité des services de santé et des services sociaux offerts aux usagers du réseau. Je tiens d'ailleurs à profiter de l'occasion pour remercier le regroupement ainsi que les comités des usagers et les comités de résidents pour leur implication et leur engagement essentiel. Je vous souhaite une excellente semaine nationale des droits des usagers. Merci.
Donc, je vais admettre deux autres personnes et sans plus tarder, je vais passer la parole à notre président, le président du RPCU, M. Pierre Hamel. Pierre?
Alors, bonsoir à toutes et à tous. Good evening all. Merci pour votre participation et j'en profite pour vous remercier du temps que vous consacrez à la défense des droits des usagers et pour votre implication à l'amélioration des services de santé et des services sociaux. Par votre constante présence sur le terrain, car vous êtes nos yeux et nos oreilles. Encore merci. Bon webinaire. Have a good session with Mr. Bolduc and Mr. Boucher.
Merci, Pierre. Alors, sans plus tarder, je passerai donc la parole à Gérald et je rappelle aux gens de mettre la sourdine, s'il vous plaît. Gérald?
Good evening to everybody. I will first go with the partage of the screen. Can you see? No, you probably not. It will not. It will lie here. Okay. There's some troubles here. Sorry about that. Just a minute. I will be back in a few seconds. Oh, problem. Just a minute. Alors, Eric, je suis pas capable d'aller chercher mon document. Je l'avais pourtant descendu en bas, mais il n'est pas là, ce document. Alors, il est dans mon ordinateur, évidemment, mais je n'arrive pas à l'ouvrir puisque je suis en Zoom. Alors, je vais tenter quelque chose ici. On verra ce qui va se passer. Je vais mettre mon Zoom sur l'autre écran et essayer d'ouvrir ici. Bon, ça semble aller. Maintenant, je vais faire l'échange. Je vais mettre sur mon grand écran.
Je te laisse aller un peu, Gérald. Là. Après ça, je t'aiderai s'il y a quelque chose.
Oui.
Donc,
OK. Je ramène ça ici. J'envoie ça sur l'autre écran. Ici. Je l'envoie en bas. Je retente. Je vais tenter de nouveau de partager mon écran. Alors, ici, partage d'écran. J'essaye avec ça.
oui, tu peux appuyer sur le carré, là. C'est ça pour agrandir l'écran. Vas-y donc avec ça.
Oui. Alors, on va faire ça, puis je vais envoyer le monde là. Alors, on va y aller. Est-ce que vous voyez? Tout le monde voit mon... Oh. Can you tell me if you can see my screen with the title?
We can see it.
Oui. Ben, oui.
I did not see your answers. Do you see my screen? The screen is with the title, The Rights of Users. Do you know them?
Yes, we see it.
Oui,
Okay, so let's go. The objectives of the end of this meeting, of the presentation, is that at the end of the meeting, you will be able to identify the 12 rights of the Act respecting health services and social services. But there will not very much time on this objective. The second one is much more important, to better understand the application of certain rights. And third, identify resources that can support you when you are dissatisfied with the services received. An observation that we make everywhere: users don't know their rights when it comes to health and social services. We will try to test our knowledge. So we have to find the words which are missing here. And this will give us a revision of the 12 rights. The right to be informed. It is the first right. The second right is to receive care and services that are needed, such as examination, samples, care, treatment, or any other intervention. The right to choose his professional or the establishment in which one wishes to receive the services. The right to receive the care that his state of health requires when his life is in danger. We go on with the fifth right, the right to consent to care or to refuse care. And you know about that. The right to actively participate in any decision that may affect their state of health. 7, the right to be accompanied or assisted by a person during appointments or when receiving care, if the situation allows. It is also the choice to be by a person of one's choice when one is incapacitated or incapable. The choice to be represented. 8, the right to be housed. It's a question of accommodation here in the institution until their state of health allows them to return home or a place in another institution is assured. The right to receive services in English if needed. The right to access one's user file, the right to confidentiality. It is for the user the right to demand that never be disclosed without his consent the information recorded in his medical file. The right to lodge a complaint when one is dissatisfied with the services. And we can have a little exercise here to see how the application of those rights is made. The first situation is that Carmen was nervous about meeting his cardiologist for the first time. Fortunately, her husband was by her side to accompany her. However, the cardiologist's attitude showed the husband was not welcomed. Sir, it's not you I'm treating, it's your wife, so it's up to her to talk to me, he told him. Freezed, Carmen did not know how to react, and uncomfortable, her husband was silent for the rest of the appointment. On the way home, Carmen remembered various points that she wanted to deal with the cardiologist, but unfortunately forgot about them due to the stress and everything that went through her head. Has a right of Carmen been violated? Of course. But here is the answer. At any time, a user may be accompanied by the person of their choice for an appointment. A professional cannot require a person accompanying the user to remain silent or to leave in order to be alone with the user. I wrote here very small, except for certain types of exams, or if the user asks to be alone with the professional. Also, during the COVID-19 pandemic, this right may have been temporarily suspended with the permission of the Ministry of Health. But this is finished now. It is the right to be accompanied or assisted by a person during appointments or when receiving care, if the situation allows. We will not forget those little words here, if the situation allows. The accompanying person does not dictate services or treatment. They are there to support the user, in particular by helping them to obtain complete and clear information. It is also the right to be represented by a person of one's choice when one is incapable or unfit.
So, Gérald, I have someone who asked us, would it not have helped if Carmen specified to her doctor that she wanted her husband to be there?
Excuse me, I did not understand le commencement de ta question, je n'ai pas compris.
She asked if it would not have helped if Carmen specified to her doctor that she wanted her husband to be there.
Well, not easy to give an answer here because I think maybe this professional did not remember that the law said that she had permission to be accompanied here. The right to be accompanied. Sometimes people in the health system need to be informed about this right. And I had the case in my area where we had to discuss with professionals about this right. So may happen that you have to take care of this, to be careful about this right. Is my answer clear enough? Had a hard time to join the meeting. I have received.
Okay. Je vais répondre à ça. Merci, Madame Sabourin.
OK.
J'ai eu plusieurs appels
Oui, Madame Sabourin, oui, c'est bon. Je peux vous envoyer le lien, là. Le lien est envoyé plusieurs fois. Est-ce que les gens, vous n'avez pas eu difficulté avec le lien?
J'ai connecté avec le lien, mais le numéro de passe ne marchait pas, ne fonctionnait pas.
Okay, nobody needed the password normally to get in the room. So you didn't need the password. Something went.
But it wouldn't. I managed to get in now, but I've been trying like for 15 minutes.
I will send you the link in a few seconds. Sorry, Gérald, je te laisse continuer. Is it okay, Diane? You can share the link with your people? Okay.
I go on with the presentation. Okay. Now, do you have the right to refuse care or treatment? Of course, you have the answer about that, so I will go faster here. Right to consent to care or refuse care, but in the application of the right may come to some questions. In theory, it is impossible to impose health care on an adult user. His physical integrity is considered one of his fundamental rights, Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms. For example, the decision of a user who refuses a medical intervention must be respected even if it may result in his death. Obviously, his decision must be made with full knowledge of the facts. The decision must be free and the user must be informed, accepts voluntarily without being forced to do so, knows the risk and consequences. But you probably I heard about some cases going to a trial about that. So you probably hear about that too. May happen, but the right is there. Exceptions for which patient consent is not required. It is an emergency. In an emergency, the professionals have to act rapidly and they don't have time to check. So this right must be forget. The government requires immediate treatment of an infection disease such as tuberculosis. The mental state of the user represents a danger to himself or to society. The person is incapable of consenting to health care on his or her own. But when it happens, if a person is incapable, consent may be obtained by another person on his or her behalf in accordance with the provisions of the law. In case of emergency, will a person who is unfit or incapable to give consent still receive care? Of course. Right to receive services, the second right, says that any person whose life or integrity is in danger has the right to receive the care required by his state of health. The Act, Chapter 7. In an emergency situation, user consent is not required. However, as soon as the latter is able to do so, or his representative is reached, consent must be sought. Every human being has the right to life, as well as the security, integrity, and liberty of his person. And this is from the Charter of Rights and Liberties, Rights and Freedoms. Second situation. Agathe is currently in the emergency room for abdominal pain. Quickly, considering that she is suffering, she is administered painkillers and she is given a variety of tests. Between each test, she is moved in one of the alcoves of the emergency room, where each patient is separated from her neighbor by a curtain. And you can imagine what happened? After a few hours, the emergency physician comes to see her to mention that a suspicious spot has been detected on her liver, and that a biopsy will be needed quickly. Once she has all the information in hand, understands her situation and the next step. The doctor leaves to meet another patient. Meanwhile, Lorraine, a former neighbor of Agathe, approaches her. Hello, Agathe. Yes, it's not going too well. My husband is also here tonight, 2 beds away. Don't worry too much. He also had a big spot on his liver. We thought it was cancerous, but at the end, it was benign. Has an Agathe right been violated? Agathe's right been violated? The answer is, at all times, the user's entire file must remain confidential. No one except you, the relatives who accompany you, and the professionals involved in your care should be aware of your state of health. To receive the results of her exam, and this is what is the most important, Agathe should have been taken away to a place where no one would have heard the discussion. Right to confidentiality of one's user's file. It may happen that information is communicated to third parties without the consent of the users. For instance, the family, employer, and so forth. This is called a breach of confidentiality. Several forms for that. Hallway discussions overheard by people who are not members of the healthcare team. Visible notes to file. The visible notes on the corner of the exam results. Discussions between employees, volunteers in the cafeteria. Volunteers, this is about maybe the users committees. We have to never forget that. Right to access to your user file. The information contained in the file is confidential, so access is regulated. Who can access the file? Only professionals have access to the file for service needs. The user, by the way, 14 years old is considered as a user, 14 years old at least. Or in case of incapacity, the person can give consent on his behalf. Heirs of a deceased person, but for reasons specified in the Act, and we have to read what is specified in the Act about that. How to obtain your file? The medical archivist is the designated person. Written consent is required from the user or his or her guarantor. The Act provides for a 20-day time limit to provide access to the file. This is a long time, you will say, maybe. It's the first of all because they have to review the whole file to be sure that some parts will not be given to the user himself. Why? The professionals sometimes have handwritten notes on the corner of the exam results, and they don't want that those notes may have been put on the files, so they want to take them off, and that's why it may take. But usually it takes maybe 1 or 2 days, 3 days maybe, to have access to our file. Access is free, but fees may be charged for copies. The user of his representative may request professional assistance to understand the content of the file. Sometimes we have words that we do not understand, so we can ask, and a professional will give us assistance for that. And if you need copies, but you will have to pay some money about that. Situation 3. His cognitive abilities were deteriorating and his wife was no longer able to take care of him, so Mr. Gélina was admitted to a CHSLD. At home, with the supervision of his spouse, he was always able to defecate on the toilet. After 3 days in a CHSLD, Mr. Gélina noticed that the attendants responded less and less quickly to the bell when he wanted to go to the bathroom. Then, what was to happen happened. He made a saddle in her panties. When an attendant came to his room, Mr. Gélina was in tears, in his clothes soiled by saddle and urine. Listen, Mr. Gélina, you have been ringing for 45 minutes. You are not alone here. I can't take you to the toilet 5 times a day. You know that there we are understaffed everywhere. I can do miracles. Look, we are going to put an incontinence panty on you. I have one right here, the attendant told him. No longer able to express and defend himself as before, Mr. Gélina struggled at first, a little bit, but let himself put on the diaper. Have one or more of Mr. Gélina's rights been violated? Mr. Gélina, like all residents and all users, has the right to services. Although the right to services may be questionable depending on the resources available. And those words here are very important because we will probably use them many times. By these times. The Act provides that every person has the right to receive adequate health and social services in terms of scientist, human, staff attitude, reasonable waiting time. That was the case. With continuity, personalized, safe. We could also raise the right to participate in decisions, since Mr. Gélina obviously did not agree to wear incontinence brief. The patient must always have the opportunity to play an active role in his or her care plan. Even when it comes to starting a new medication, the professional must give him all the information required so that they understand their state of health and that they have the opportunity to discuss the different options, then decide on what will be the most beneficial for the health of the user. That is the answer. And we understand, everybody of us, we understand that the small, those words which we have seen a few minutes ago, although the right to services may be questionable depending on the resources available. What I would like to say here is that the members of the committee should be very careful about that kind of event and take notes about that. Keep those events in their files, because at the end of the year, when they work with the final report, their final report, those notes will be very important. So keep notes about those things, even if people will tell you that they don't have the personnel to, they don't have the employees enough. They don't have employees enough. They always use this, but our role is to keep remembering that the law is that they have to give services. When we say give services, it should mean that they are services respecting the most recent scientist knowledge. staff attitude, reasonable waiting. Oh, we used to say that reasonable waiting time is less than 20 minutes. Less than 20 minutes. That's what we used to say. But when it's time to go to the toilet for some persons, it's the 20 minutes is too long. So be careful about that kind of situation and keep notes about that. And you can even speak to the employees which are responsible. And this is our work to our role to keep an eye on those situations. Continuité, personalized, security.
I'm sorry for the mistake, and we should have seen intimacy there and scientific also on the previous.
Je t'entends presque pas.
That's okay. Just sorry for the mistake about the intimacy and the scientific on the previous screen. That's okay.
Okay. Right to actively participate in decisions that may affect mental or physical well-being. Participate in the implementation or modification of my intervention plan. In addition to the 12 rights, other legal documents continue to apply for someone who is taken care of by the health network. Thus, Mr. Gélinas' dignity, Charter of Rights, is clearly compromised by the actions of the attendants who do not meet his need to be accompanied to the bathroom. A lack of manpower is therefore not sufficient excuse. That's why I told you to keep notes about that kind of events. And I wrote here to defend the common rights and interests of users. This is written in the third legal function of the members of the users committee. This is the third function, legal function. That's why if we wrote that kind of thing, we have those events in our files, it may be useful. Legal documents in which human rights are affirmed, Charter of Human Rights and Freedom. Everyone has the right to the protection of his dignity, honor, and reputation. Youth Protection Act, Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom, Civil Code of Quebec. We can keep in mind that we have the 12 rights, but we also have the fundamental rights. If we speak about dignity, we are speaking about fundamental rights. Small test here. As a user of the réseau de la santé des services sociaux, I am fully responsible for finding out about all the services available to meet my needs. Of course, this is not true. I am not responsible. If I need help at home or accommodation, the health institution must inform me about how to obtain the service needed. Right. If I need a specialized service or special equipment and there is none in my area, I should refrain from receiving this service. This is not true, of course. Right to information. The first one. What does that mean? It means that it is the right to be informed of the existence of services and resources available in one's community in terms of both health and social services. It is the right to know how to access these services and resources. If institutions are unable to provide certain services, they must refer individuals to another facility, agency, or person providing the services. That's what means the right to information. Not only the conditions of health of the user, but all this. When I see my doctor, he must explain my health problem as clearly as possible, the results of my test, my diagnosis. Of course, this is right. If I were to have surgery or treatment, the healthcare professional is not obligated to inform me of the risk and consequences of that surgery or treatment, but it would be nice if they did. No, he must give you the information about the risk and consequences, of course. Your loved one, for whom you are the sponsor, was mistakenly given the wrong medication. In order not to worry you, the nurse may decide to not inform you. This is not true, this is false, of course. Right to information. It is the right to be informed about one's state of health and well-being, diagnosis, prognosis, possible treatments with risks and consequences. It is the right to be informed of any incident occurring during the treatment and which is likely to result in consequences on his state of health. We sometimes forget that the right to information means that if there is an accident, they must inform you about that. Right to information, a health and social service professional must clearly inform about the diagnosis unless it deems that the disclosure could cause harm. Unless it deems that the disclosure could cause harm. But this, I guess, does not happen very often. But it may happen. I don't speak French. Can I receive information in my mother tongue? Yes, of course. And this is one of the 12 rights. You can receive the information in your language if it's English or French. Although I put the small words a bit under this slide, although the right to services may be questionable depending on the resource available. If there is nobody to give the service in English, they will try to find someone as soon as possible, normally. And they will try to have someone who will translate for you. But sometimes may happen that they have nobody to do that. If it happens, I suggest that the members of the users committee and the committee, the resident committee, keep notes about those events. Situation 4. Aline kept her husband with Alzheimer's disease at home for more than 6 years. Age 88, exhausted, she must resign herself to find him a place in a long-term care facility. Accommodation located more than 20 kilometers from her home is offered. She does not have a car. His only son lives 400 kilometers away. By bus, it takes 1.5 hours one way. She is distraught, sad, and asks the social worker to have her husband stay closer to home. The social worker replied, "That's how it is, madame. You have no choice." Has Mrs. Aline and her husband's right been violated? Mrs. Aline and her spouse, like all users, have the right to choose their professional or establishment, although the right may be questionable depending on the resources available. This is the answer. Although this right may be questionable depending on the resources available, the users can choose. The users can choose his professional, but it's always, although the right may be questionable depending on the resources available. If you want to choose your physician, for instance, right to choose one's professional, choose can impact on wait time, location, services, and care offered. The institution is responsible for designating the type of stakeholder. Staff members also have the right to refuse to provide care or service for justified reasons. For instance, conflicts of interest. We have to know that. But the institution is responsible for designating. What does that mean? The right to health and social services, the right to choose a professional in the establishment, be exercised taking into account that the legislative and regulatory provisions relating to the organization and operation of the establishment, as well as the human, material, and financial resources at its disposal. The right to accommodation, it is the right to remain in the institution, even if the user has received his professional leave, until his state of health allows him to return home or a place is assured, taking into account the condition, his condition. On the other establishment, like intermediate or family types resource, obligations of the user, if the institution, in response to the needs of the user, finds a place in a housing resource, offers home support services, the user must accept the transfer or the service offer. But I can tell you that when it happens, the social workers and all the resources in the place, in the establishment, will try to find the best place for the person, usually. You are dissatisfied with the services, you can file complaints. Right to complain is that the last right of the 12. The complaint process communicate dissatisfaction to the professional or person concerned. We will not go to the complaint immediately. Usually, we suggest that we try to have explanations, try to have answers, contact the responsible manager, unit head, coordinator, director. And if you don't have the right answer, the answer you wish, ask for assistance from your users committee, who can redirect you to the resources available to support your approach. The resources: Senior Abuse Helpline, ligne abus aîné. Here is the number. The Centre d'assistance et d'accompagnement aux plaintes. We have one center like this almost everywhere in the province. And the local service quality and complaint commissioner. You should normally see in every establishment this leaflet about complaints and the number, the telephone, the phone number to call the complaint commissioner. You should see, you should find this in the entry of the establishment, usually, or you can ask to have it. You can ask to have it in English too. Connaissez-vous les droits des usagers? Do you know the rights of users? There were 12 rights. And we should not forget the fundamental rights, which are in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Thank you for your participation. Now, do we have questions? You can have comments or questions at the end of this presentation. I look at the discussion here. Discussion.
Liliane aurait une question.
What's the point of having some of these rights if they're always conditional?
What's the right of, excuse me?
What's the point of having these rights written down if they're always conditional? If they're conditional, they're not really rights.
Well, the right is to is to complain, I would say, because it often happens, actually, I know, and we should never ignore when it happens. That's why the role of our members in the committee, the users committee, is not easy. It's not easy because we always have this argument, but we have the right to complain. Use the complaint commissioner, of course. But people often don't want to complain. You know that probably, but we must explain them. We must explain them that complaining is giving help to other users. And sometimes they are afraid to have consequences about that, but the law is very clear about that. They don't have to fear, but they need to have good explanations about that. But I will say, you have to complain. Is that okay? Do we have another question?
It's hard, but it's hard to explain to a parent who's been on a waiting list for residential, for example, for years and years, and then read the 12 rights, and it says you have the right to hébergement, to housing, when it's not true.
You are right about that. You are right about that. But I think people will probably try to find a place for you. They will try, and they will offer, and we have to insist. We have to. We should ask. We can continue to ask what we need, and ask also help to the commissioner, the complaint commissioner, for that.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe Eric, you have another answer about that?
No, just that the complaint commissioner, do you call them, do you name them ombudsman in English also, or something like that?
No, the complaints commissioner.
Complaints commissioner.
Complaint commissioner, yes.
Okay.
The ombudsman du Québec is when it doesn't work with the complaint commissioner, you can go to maybe the ombudsman, but it's another way where it's possible to go, but the last way maybe not at the beginning of the problems. Okay.
Madame Sabourin, j'aurais l'impression aussi que la mission, est-ce que vous m'entendez bien?
Oui.
Oui, j'aurais l'impression que la mission des ITSA, c'est un petit peu plus difficile aussi. Il y a certaines missions où c'est un peu plus difficile pour l'hébergement aussi, hein?
Oui, c'est très, très difficile.
Oui. Il y a encore du travail, beaucoup de travail à faire. Donc là, on est plus dans la sphère politique rendue là.
Oui.
Right.
Surtout que nos usagers sont de la naissance jusqu'à la fin de leur vie. C'est pas juste commencer HSLD, sont là pour les dernières années de leur vie. Nos usagers, c'est pour la vie.
Et les lieux pour les services au DITSA, il y en a moins que pour beaucoup d'autres types de clientèle. C'est la raison pour laquelle certains usagers peuvent être appelés à être déplacés parfois loin de leur milieu.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have other comments or questions?
Oui, moi, j'avais juste une clarification. Est-ce que vous pouvez m'entendre?
Oui, très bien.
OK. Je voulais juste revalider le processus d'escalader un problème, une plainte. Donc, c'est à la personne qui a offert le service, c'est la première personne. Après ça, c'est leur superviseur ou à la personne qui se rapporte. Après ça, c'est le comité des usagers. Et là, c'est le Complaints Commissioner après ça.
Non, je vous dirais, premièrement, l'infirmier ou infirmière de l'étage, sur l'étage. L'infirmière responsable sur l'étage. Après cela, administrateur de l'établissement, gestionnaire de l'établissement, si ça n'a pas fonctionné. Après le gestionnaire de l'établissement, le commissaire aux plaintes. Voilà.
Donc, le comité des usagers, il rentre où dans le portrait ici?
Bon, bonne question, parce que l'usager peut lui-même franchir toutes ces étapes-là. Mais le comité des usagers, dès qu'il est informé d'une situation problématique, aussitôt qu'un membre d'un comité d'usagers a l'information, il peut demander à la personne la permission de l'accompagner ou de l'aider dans ses démarches. Si la personne dit oui, à ce moment-là, un membre du comité des usagers peut tout de suite accompagner l'usager quand il va parler au responsable des soins infirmiers, par exemple, première étape. Alors, accompagner avec la permission de l'usager. Parfois, cependant, on dit que le rôle d'accompagner dans les interventions devrait être réservé à des membres des comités des usagers et non pas un membre de comité de résidents. Si un résident dans un comité de résidents entend parler de ce genre de situation, bien, à ce moment-là, avant de commencer les interventions, il devrait parler à un membre du comité des usagers pour peut-être lui demander de prendre la suite pour l'accompagnement. Parce qu'on dit que l'accompagnement, c'est la fonction 4 qui est réservée aux membres des comités des usagers. Mais disons que c'est un peu flou dans le sens que dans un comité de résidents, les gens qui sont là, dans les faits, font effectivement plusieurs démarches auprès des premiers responsables des interventions. Alors, ils le font et très souvent, une grande partie des problèmes se règlent tout de suite là à la base, sans qu'on ait besoin d'aller dans les niveaux au-dessus.
Oui. Oui.
Ça répond à votre question?
Oui. Juste une clarification. Donc, le comité des usagers, c'est vraiment leur rôle, c'est d'agir comme facilitateur, de partager des informations, comment escalader un problème.
Ben, oui, on peut le décrire comme ça. Le comité des usagers, son rôle, c'est de bien comprendre la problématique et de tenter avec la personne de savoir exactement qu'est-ce que la personne souhaite qu'il se produise comme changement ou quel correctif devrait être apporté. À ce moment-là, il peut y aller de ses suggestions, le membre et tout, et ils peuvent aller voir les deux ensemble en suivant les niveaux de responsabilité que j'ai mentionnés tout à l'heure. C'est ça.
C'est bien, merci.
Ensuite, j'ajouterais peut-être qu'il y a toute la notion de noter de tous les cas, de noter tous les cas, puis de rendre compte de ça dans un rapport annuel, puis de faire des recommandations à l'établissement. Puis ces recommandations-là, l'établissement doit y répondre, c'est de façon publique. C'est des choses qui sont ramassées dans le régime d'examen des plaintes, c'est des choses qui sont bonnes au ministère de la Santé. Là. Fait que tout l'aspect des statistiques et des recommandations à faire à l'établissement, auxquelles l'établissement doit légalement y répondre.
Parfait, merci.
Très bien. Alors ici, s'il n'y a pas d'autres questions ni d'autres commentaires, je vous remercie beaucoup de votre attention. Je vous remercie des commentaires je remercie les personnes qui ont inscrit des commentaires dans la partie discussion. I want to say thank you to everyone who was participating to this meeting, and I wish you a very good night.
Juste un petit commentaire. La présentation, est-ce que c'est possible d'avoir une copie de ça?
Je pense que
C'était transmis.
Est-ce que c'est disponible en quelque part?
Tous ceux qui ont été inscrits, vous l'avez reçu par courriel.
Bon, OK.
OK. Regardez dans un des courriels, là, vous cliquez et vous pouvez télécharger la présentation.
C'est parfait.
Mr. is asking if you can have the slides and with the invitation you already received the slides. Take a look at your message with the invitation, and you have a line where you can ask for the slides, and you can record.
Also, this presentation is recorded. It will be available on the RPCU website. You can also write to my email, formation au pluriel à commercial.
Il y a une sorte d'écho, Éric, dans ta façon de parler. On n'entend pas très bien. Je ne sais pas comment ça se fait, mais on perd des mots.
Okay. So I'll give you my address if you want something. You just if you have a question, you write to me. Okay, I'll give you my address right now in the discussion. Okay.
Formation
before leaving.
@rpcu.qc.ca. Voilà. Thank you and have a good evening. Good night, everyone. Good night,
Thank you very
everyone.
much.
Eric, peux-tu rester juste une seconde?
Oui.
C'est juste pour vous dire que j'avais beaucoup de monde qui voulait être là ce soir, mais moi, ça m'a pris 15 minutes à rentrer sur le site. J'imagine qu'il y a beaucoup de personnes qui ont eu le même problème.
Oui, c'est ça. Écoutez, j'arrive pas à comprendre parce que ça, je sais pas comment le dire, là, mais ça arrive souvent avec mes comités anglophones, OK? Mes comités francophones, j'ai aucun problème, mais systématiquement, avec mes comités anglophones, avec Kaiser, mon formateur qui est plus anglophone, c'est la même chose. Il faut vraiment qu'on envoie le lien pour eux directement. Ils ont de la difficulté avec Eventbrite. Je ne sais pas pourquoi. OK? Il y a peut-être dans ma formulation ou quelque chose comme ça, il y a quelque chose qui n'est pas clair. Je vais regarder ça. C'est juste qu'avec avec la quantité énorme de formations et de gens qui s'inscrivent, c'est important que ça soit... Eventbrite me facilite beaucoup la tâche pour garder les statistiques, pour avoir les courriels et tout ça. Fait que, je vais regarder, moi, demain, je regarderai. Qu'est-ce qui se passe? Comment ça se fait que c'est pas clair comme ça? Je vais peut-être mettre des... Là, il faut que je fasse attention aussi à l'aspect légal, là, mais mettre des directives en anglais aussi, là, tu sais.
OK. OK. Merci beaucoup. Bonne soirée et merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Merci bien. Merci à vous.
Madame Bélan, c'est rare qu'on se voit comme ça, de visu. Ça va bien? Tout est beau?
C'est Madame.
Je parlais à Madame Bélan. Ouvrez votre micro. C'est rare que je peux vous voir.
Ah bon, c'est ça, oui.
Ça va?
Oui, ça va bien, merci.
Ça va bien. On vous fait travailler le soir maintenant.
Pardon?
On vous fait travailler le soir.
Oui, mais ça arrive, hein, ça arrive, ça, qu'est-ce que vous voulez. Eh bien, alors, merci beaucoup.
Merci, Madame Bélan, et bonne soirée.
Merci de votre attention.
Merci.
Alors, Éric, ça me permet de te parler pour te dire que les enregistrements, si tu peux m'envoyer les fichiers, j'aimerais ça, peut-être les écouter. Est-ce que tu peux, légalement, là, tu peux?
Oui, absolument.